Somebody asked me this morning how blogs work, so I attempted to answer that question in an article, and I'm going to address it in this video today as well, because I figured other people are going to have that same question. Now, that question sort of needs a little bit of digging to really understand the core of what someone's asking when they ask how blogs work. A programmer could ask that because he wants to create a blogging tool himself, but she was asking from a pure publishing standpoint. She wanted to get on the internet and start blogging, but she didn't really understand how it works and what's the point of a blog. What is it like? She knew that she wanted to write and she wanted to have a website, and other people were suggesting blogging. Well, how do blogs work? Well, it's pretty simple process. The standard basic process is you create what's called a blog post. Now, the post could be anything. It could be a news item. It could be an article in a series of how-to articles. It doesn't really matter. Blogging is kind of taken on a whole new definition. But whatever it is, whether it's a diary entry, whatever it is, you're creating what's called a blog post. Now, what happens in general is that post, as soon as you create it, will show up on the home page of the website. So here's an example here. This is a default setup of WordPress in 2013, and it was very simple. It took me 5 minutes to install. That's why I did it, just specifically for this demonstration, so I can demo what a blog is and how a blog works. Now, this is the home page, the main page for the blog, and there was already one sample blog post in WordPress when it was installed, and that shows up right here on the home page. And in general, what you'll see is the title, the date, the category that it's in, and the reason. And since I'm logged in already as an administrator, it gives me an edit link that normally won't be there for the average person viewing this page. And then it'll give me a short description of the blog post. It'll take an excerpt of the blog post. I could define what that is as a short description, or if it doesn't exist, the blogging tool, in this case WordPress, will create one based on the content of the post. This happens to be the entire content of the post anyway, and then other times you'll see also how many comments are on this particular post. I want to show you a real-world example of sort of a blogging system that I created in the past for a company I used to work for, Windsor Raceway. Now, what I did was just create a news section, and it worked identically. Anytime there's a new piece of news, it was added to the homepage, and it showed the title, the date, and a short description. There was no categories or anything like that. I didn't get into that, but now it works exactly the same way. So when somebody clicks on the title, it'll link to a full version of the blog post on its own page, and that was similar to what was done here. I had to actually extend it a little bit because sometimes they didn't want to link to a blog post, but they wanted to link to a PDF for press releases, for example. So I made it so that they can link to PDF. So the title can either link to an external file or to the full news release. Now, this is the website today. There's not much activity because the business had closed, but I'll show you in the archives, in the Internet Archive Wayback Machine. Here's an example of a bunch of them. And anytime a new piece, you'll notice at the bottom is the oldest content, and then anytime a new piece of content would come in, it would bump the older one down, and the new one would show up at the top. So ultimately, there's a giant list of new posts in here, which was news items in this case, and they would bump the previous news down each time. So again, they link either to the actual full news post, or in some cases in this on this site, to a PDF. All right, so that's a basic blogging system in play right here, and it's not much different than what today's blogs are. So if I created a new blog post, which I'll do right now, let's go to Add New. this is all I really need to create the blog post. The date gets created automatically, however I can change that. The visibility, whether it's public or password protected, it's public by default. I don't have to change that. And there's a couple other things I could change the format and what category it goes into, and if there's any tags or if there's a featured image. But in general, all I really need to create a post is the title and the actual body of the post, and the date will be added automatically, and the category will be set up as a default category, whatever the category is by default. So in this case, uncategorized. So then I just click on publish. And now if I go back to the website and I refresh the page, I'll see the new blog post at the top. And that, again, that works very similar to how this worked. Anytime there's a new news item, it would show up at the top and bump the other one down. So that's, as you can see, the first post, Hello World, was moved down and the new one showed up at the top. And that really is the basics of how blogs work. And now, they've come a long way. Blogs come significantly long way. Like when I first created this system, I hadn't even heard of blogs, and the functionality of it, like about a couple months after I created this, that's when I started hearing more and more about blogs. And so that was back in, actually even before 2005. I just pulled from the archives from 2005, so it was a long time before that. And so things have come a long way. Like blogs are much more advanced than they ever used to be. And you can create full-blown sites with a blog, just a portion of that site, using the blogging tool. Now, there's there's a few distinct things that are that have changed over the years, and one is, rather than just a text box where you would go and you would type in your HTML and whatever it is you needed, there's a visual editor now. So if I wanted to bold a certain word, for example, I just have to highlight that word, click bold. And if I wanted to italicize a word, I would just highlight and click italicize. And I don't have to know anything about HTML. I'm not inserting HTML in this post. It's doing it for me. So if I clicked on text, I could see that the HTML is already in there. I don't need to know anything about that. So there's a visual editor, a WYSIWYG editor, that helps with the creation of posts and allows you to add visual elements to the post very easily. So that's one key thing. And you can separate things in categories, but also in tags. You can tag something, and it's not quite a category, but a tag would be something that the post's about, but doesn't fall on a specific category. So you could just tag it. If there's something mentioned in the post, you can just tag it with that tag name. In general, there's a lot more tag names than there ever would be categories. And then you can create pages. Posts are just like the series of news, series of diary entries, whatever. And pages, in this case, you could put like about us, contact us. Those would fall in the pages category, but essentially they're the same thing. The pages just don't show up in the archive list. If I created a new page, it would show up in a menu bar rather than on top of this one. That's the difference. And the appearances. Now that's one thing that's really interesting about new blogging platforms, where you can change the entire look of a website by just adding a new appearance. Whereas back in the day, if I wanted to change this, I would have to move all my code that generates this blogging section. I would have to move it into a new site if I created a new site from scratch. Whereas these days, all I'd really have to do is change the theme. So here's an old theme, 2012. I'm using 2013. That's there by default. But if I wanted to activate a new one, I just have to click on activate. And I can upload different ones if somebody had created one for me, if I purchased one. And now suddenly I have a different look for my site, and I don't have to do anything else except for refresh a page. And suddenly now there's a new look and feel for the entire site. And it's still the same basic, like the new blog post shows up at the top and the older one shows up below it. Very similar thing, but just the way things are laid out and displayed is different. And all it required was uploading a new theme that's set up in a specific way so that I can change the look entirely of my website. Now also just the same, there are plugins that you can add, or add-ons that will change certain functionality of a website, or add different enhancements or whatever to the website. So there's millions of different plugins that are available that will change. You can turn your entire site into an e-commerce site by applying a shopping cart plugin, for example, and then suddenly within post you can start selling products and set up payment gateways through PayPal or through credit card systems or whatever to accept purchases. So blogging has definitely come a long way since the early days, and I hope you enjoyed the overview, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.